Hey, welcome Chrissie Mayr to the podcast, who absolutely killed it as the host of Minds Festival back in June. Thanks for coming on, Chrissie.
Oh, stop. Thank you for having me. It was such a blast. That really was such a highlight of my career, just being at the Beacon Theater, walking through the same halls as like the likes of Steely Dan and other people who've been successful. So I just was like soaking it all in. It was so great to meet so many of the people, and you guys really put together such an impressive event and connected me with a lot of great people who, I hope to eventually have on my podcasts. And it's just like a really great network. It feels like we're all building.
Oh
What
yeah.
what conversation or moment stuck out to you?
Ooh, I liked overall because I remember going into it, I would hear Tim Pool just on his show discuss his frustrations with trying to get anybody on the left, like generally to come on his show and just in general, the overall consensus was like, oh, if they think someone on the right or someone conservative is trying to debate them, they just simply won't be a guest, or it has to be something like a debate con, which not everyone is interested in or cut
Mhm.
out for. It just seems like civil discussions are not happening as much as they should be. So what I really liked to see, yeah, things did get heated and there were disagreements, but overall it was pretty civil. I think actually not that I'm taking it back, but there was a moment where I think James O'Keefe did kind of a gotcha with, was it Ben Burgess on something? Like they had some previous beef or something that I
Mhm.
wasn't aware of, but he uh like got the camera out. Like he really made the most of all these people kind of being in one place, and I guess they kind of hashed out their beef, or he did like kind of a gotcha like in the kind of back
Backstage.
rooms
Yeah.
backstage, and everyone's like, "What? They didn't plan this. This is part of the
Yeah,
event."
James O'Keefe pulled a James O'Keefe backstage, and yeah,
Yeah.
there were mixed reviews about that, but I think that that's the authentic James O'Keefe. That's what he does. So he came and he did what he does. But I do think that some talent don't like anything unexpected happening backstage. It's kind of like a sacred
Oh,
space.
yeah,
So
I'm sure Ben hated every second of that, and I you can definitely make an argument for that drama kind of seeping onto their kind of, like, predetermined discussion time.
mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think Tulsi might have been on their panel, right? And I remember she was kind of, like, quiet for a while, and, the thing is everyone could have spoken for at least an extra half hour each. That just speaks
Mhm.
to the quality of the guests, and you guys had a couple of, now, of course, I can't remember their names, but you guys had a couple of, they were more left-leaning. One guy had an afro. It was like a couple of the, like, you got
Yeah, Cornell
very
West.
Cornell West, yes, and I was like, "This is impressive that this guy is here," and that's somebody I never would have bumped into just in my normal life. So it
Yeah, for
and it was
sure.
nice for me to be like, because I always wanna check myself if, if I've painted myself into a corner with my thinking. You never wanna get to a place where you are, whether you realize it or not, kind of unwilling to listen to somebody from the other side that you think you'll totally disagree with on everything. And it was nice for me to find myself being like, oh yeah, he's making a lot of great points. Like it
Yeah.
was a good reminder for me.
One
Yeah.
thing that is kind of a recent interesting beef between the left and the center slash right. Sean, maybe you pull this before we talk about Chappelle, but did you see Cenk railing against Tim Pool?
He had a melty.
Oh
What was
my!
it this week? He had a full blown meltdown, and he's always yelling. Like it's easy to tune him out because he's always screaming at the top of his lungs, and you're like, okay, calm down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess
I mean, I would love
oh
for them
my
to talk. I mean,
Whoa.
god! This is
Wow.
wild. Sometimes you
Wow.
wonder
That's a
if he
wild
just
headline.
wants to be in headlines, if he even thinks about what he says.
Whoa.
well, the way that he was like
Insane.
such anger, so but because Cenk is a like blood sport type commentator. And, it's really hard to tell sometimes if he is in a character or
Yes.
not. What's your take?
Yeah, I'm constantly curious about his blood pressure. I'm always wondering how much he's sweating, how many shirts he goes through at the Young Turks over there. But yeah, and I haven't been like a longtime fan of his. He's just like one of these kind of like OG commentators. And
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, like it's really not my style to do. Like I would never want to go up against him for a debate just because I like hate like anger and conflict. I think it's like how I was raised. Like I'd so much rather make my points like on stage or through comedy, like more subtly. But he definitely is a blowhard. Like he definitely gets attention, not always positive. And I think this was in reaction to like Tim put out a couple of tweets. I think it basically because and this is something I'm not gonna like talk about it. Well, right? Are we on you? I don't know if we're on YouTube at all for this, but the 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 event that happened in Colorado Springs, it came out that that person later on was actually like non-binary, and it's funny to
Mhm.
watch the mainstream media kind of discover that in real time and be like, oh, and they're kind of just like, well, I guess anyone can claim they're non-binary because I think the alleged attacker and their like lawyer team is probably setting up to pitch some kind of a like hate crime stance because
Mhm.
now that they're suddenly non-binary. But I think when this came out, Tim was like, not I think Cenk took it as, "Oh, Tim is trying to say that this is justified," and it was a real big stretch, and Cenk is an example of somebody who will purposely and this I find that this does happen more on the left than on the right. They'll purposely misunderstand someone who they think is their enemy in order to trend or make headlines or just create drama. It seems like the goal is
Yeah.
more drama than understanding and a conversation.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, the fact that he went so hard to the point where, he was sweating to try to legitimately argue that Tim is a full-blown pedophile, like, it just seems like a strange hook to hang your hat on. Like, I don't know. It's such a stretch, and to go so hard after that point, I feel like first of all, I would love to see them have a conversation because there have been other beefs with them in the past. Like one time, I think it was at Politicon. I want to say Cenk confronted Tim in person and absolutely like reamed him out. Um, and so yeah, I just can't take it seriously. It doesn't seem real to me.
It is hard to
Yeah.
take it seriously, and you know how it's like what I what I feel like this is a symptom of, like, I feel like for a couple years, people were being like, "Oh, like, the left can't meme," and then, like, yes, left kind of took control over culture, but, like, in this post-Trump era, like, the right has made some strides culturally, and I think definitely in, like, the sense of humor department and in the meme department, and then I noticed, like, eventually, the left would just take like, the right's insults and just kind of try to boomerang them back, and it just wouldn't stick. Like, I would hear lefties be like, "Oh, the right can't meme," and it's like, "No, that's what we've been saying about you," and I think what is now starting to be sort of part of the left's cultural, I guess, personality or because of government or maybe in this post-Epstein era, it's like, yes, pedophilia has kind of become it's a Hollywood thing, an elitist thing, it's a government thing, I think it's who knows? Because I am maybe more on the right or libertarian. I feel like it's more being associated with the left, and to me, this just seems like another kind of sad, weak example of someone from the left just taking an insult that's been coming at their side and just tossing it back, hoping it might stick, and it's just not sticking, especially not with
Yeah,
somebody like
and
Tim Pool.
And he seems so pissed that Tim tries to, Tim identifies as centrist, like kind of left-leaning centrist, but libertarian also. I think Tim does, he's somewhat identityless. And that pisses Cenk off so much.
Mhm.
And Cenk just wants to put him into this bucket of being right wing just because
Yeah.
he has certain libertarian beliefs. And, that's the funny thing about people who are so strongly identify with a political ideology that it's hard for them to process people who, aren't necessarily comfortable with like a singular political identity.
And people will get upset that you don't go as hard on an issue that they would go, and that's a big part of the reason. I think a lot of people like to call Tim a fence sitter. I think it's a lot of people who get upset, like, oh, well, he believes X, Y, and Z, so he should be going as hard on these issues as I am. or that's just part of being an internet personality. You're always going to have people who wish you would go harder on certain issues, who wish you wouldn't say anything about other issues. And this Cenk thing, just like, oh yeah, he's just he's throwing spaghetti at the wall or whatever he eats every day and seeing what sticks. And he would love, right, people like him would love to paint Tim Pool as right wing so they can completely disregard him, because that is a strength of Tim kind of identifying as a centrist. It's like, yeah, no, kind of everyone doesn't really have an excuse to count out his opinion, because he is trying, I think, to stay like somewhat balanced and see all sides.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool. So Sean, let's talk about Chappelle. What was your take on these two articles? What happened here?
So the New York Times, so the SNL monologue, I'm sure you've seen it, Chrissy, with Dave Chappelle. It was interesting, like, to me, like, I think he was kind of attacking both sides. And you kind of heard it, like he was going after people on the left and on the right. And I knew there was going to be some confusion with people, and it was going to be interesting to see like how people took it. But the New York Times ran with Dave Chappelle mocks Kanye and Kyrie for, being anti-Semitic and what went down with their posts. And then CNN had the opposite, where Dave Chappelle's SNL monologue sparks backlash as being anti-Semitic. So you have one outlet saying he was kind of attacking the anti-Semitism, and the other one saying he was embracing it. So what was your take on the whole thing?
It is interesting. Yeah, that's why I kind of really enjoy every once in a while. Oh yeah, let's see what CNN has to say. Oh God, okay. Dave Chappelle is at a point now where like he's been uncancelable for quite some time, but I've noticed, even though a lot of celebrities, I would put them at uncancelable level in terms of like they have enough money to live and they can withstand some bad press. Like you still see like some of these celebrities are, the chains can be, or like they can be puppeteered in some way, because like some celebrities are like creatively stifled, and I just don't think that Dave is one of these people. And like me personally, I don't like that he made fun of Kyrie, and especially Kyrie, because he's been so strong and steadfast in his anti-vax beliefs, and really set a powerful example, for just New Yorkers, for athletes. I am a lot of respect for that. So like me personally was like, oh man. And same thing with Kanye. Like everybody in Hollywood is piling on him right now. All his friends are deserting him. Everyone's calling him crazy. Now suddenly he's addicted to porn. And it's just like, it makes me think, when it comes to Kanye, like as soon as you step outside of like your manager's bounds, or if Hollywood starts to feel like they're losing their grip on controlling you and your career, like they'll throw some just horrible rumors at you. And I feel like that's a little bit of what's happening with Kanye. I feel like people are purposely misinterpreting the things he says to make him look as bad as possible, to like regain control of him. But I think with Dave Chappelle, like he probably genuinely wants to make fun of both sides, and he should just be able to he should not feel creatively stifled any way at all. It seems like he didn't adjust his set because, oh, what are people on SNL gonna think?
Right.
Yeah, I
I saw one rumor, and I don't know if it was true, if you guys heard this, but he actually turned in a fake monologue.
Really?
Yeah, I heard. I heard
that's
that.
great.
That might have been fake news, so I might be perpetuating nonsense, but I want that to be true.
Yeah.
And I wonder too if he went, if like he's a smart guy, like all these guys that have been in Hollywood forever. I wonder if he went after Kyrie and Kanye so that he could get his digs in on the other side as well, because he knows he doesn't want to come off. They're going to paint him poorly over nothing. He had a trans opener for years, but they still labeled him transphobic. So it takes kind of nothing. So you wonder if he was like, okay, these jokes are probably safe to do. I'm going to do these so I can, make fun of the other side as well. Like I'm doing these, but I really want to do these. It's hard to tell what his like motives were, but like he's such a strong comic, and obviously
When you write,
one of the GOATs.
when you write, do do you go after people that you like on purpose? Do you like what's your process there? Or
No,
if you don't like, do you go after everybody? Do you try to balance it one side or the other?
It really depends on the scenario. Like if I have a particular like, for a few months I've had like a certain guy trolling me who's like another comic. So then it's like and I had this, same thing, this other girl YouTuber who kind of still is like you'll have people troll you and then sometimes you fire back on Twitter or maybe you respond in a video and that's okay, that's going off of your roasting skills, like your quick insults. You want to For me, it's like I don't want to like ignore someone because sometimes with these people, like if you ignore them, then they'll write the whole story and create rumors and they get to like tell the story of you or whatever. So I like to just like punch back, make fun of them, insults, roasting style. But for material like long form, ideas come, it's a very non-linear process for me. Like you'll think of a nugget of something and then you're like, "Ooh, you have to what am I going to write before this to lead up to this punchline?" Or you think of just a premise and you're like, "Well, what do I have to write before it? What do I have to write after it?" But there's like a nugget of something funny there. Like we were at dinner last night and you know how the hibachi guy is just flinging zucchini chunks into everybody's mouth and like he just like hit some little girl in the face he was missing. Like he was fucking up left and right. He cracked an egg on some guy's plate, like he dropped it. And I'm
Nice.
just like watching him fling the zucchini bits. And I'm like, what if this is how someone died? Like by choking on one of these zucchini bits that got flung. And I'm like, this is a very and then you have these ideas that you find funny. Like there's just something like, yeah, that maybe would be a scene in like a Curb Your Enthusiasm or a Seinfeld, and your ideas may not always fit into like your stand-up bit, and maybe you
Mhm.
log them away for later, or maybe you just completely forget them. You always try to keep a notebook around. And then there's
Yeah,
also a process.
have you done much sketch stuff?
God, not in a few years.
Mhm.
I'm mostly now because I'll do a morning show where I'll go over the news, and then that will fuel my more topical like stand-up material for sure. I'm just now in a good habit of reviewing the news more, so I can create more
Well,
topical jokes.
the hibachi skit is
Yeah,
yours, so I wanna see it.
I don't know. I'm like, that's just what like came out last night, and who knows? There's probably like people could listen to this and be like, "That's not funny at all. Someone could really
Right.
die."
Yeah, it's kind of funny to me though, like with Dave, how his audience has changed. If you go back to the the Chappelle Show 2006, I'd say most of his audience were liberal. And these
Mm.
days, it's interesting watching the conservatives defend him and the liberals go after him. So it's kind of it kind of shows like how much things have changed just in our lifetime. It's kind of crazy.
Right, but I'm sure his sense of humor has, like, probably stayed the same, right? It's
Right.
just the Overton window shifts, and I felt the same for me too because I started out my comedy career, like, registered Democrat, had a monthly show at the Stonewall Inn. I was like, very much like a feminist, like, didn't vote for Trump the first time, voted for, God, the Green Party chick. I'm totally,
Jill
like,
Stein? Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
blacking it out. That's how
yeah.
embarrassed I was.
Hey,
I
no,
wasn't so
Jill
uninformed.
Stein actually does seem like a good person to me. I get it.
Yeah.
She's a socialist, but I do think that,
Ugh.
from some of the, there's kind of this sliver of the progressive movement, people like Greenwald, Jill Stein, the Abby Martins, like Ben Burgess, for instance, like
Yeah.
who do care about free speech and like they'll hold on to it because they know that it's necessary, even though the political ideology is still quite different. I think that it's not one breed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I understand like your sense of humor can kind of stay the same over a period of years like mine did. Like I always had like kind of a twisted, sometimes dark, sometimes more like classically male sense of humor. But just because of the kind of the assault on free speech in the last few years,
Yeah.
that is what is sort of like springboarded me into being like politically activated and more for like, First Amendment person, Second Amendment person, more now. Okay, I'm in the libertarian, maybe right wing sphere
Yeah.
more.
Are you seeing in New York? Are you seeing at the clubs the more speech being censored or comics, not able to do certain jokes?
No, I would say at any if anything, it's comics like maybe they're self-censoring, but it really depends on the club. Like I'm sure And the like the culture somewhere like the Comedy Cellar is like, from what I hear, like I haven't like been passed or auditioned there or anything, but like you have to kill every time. You know, it's like Louis C.K.'s place, so maybe it is more like liberally minded. I would say at the more like legacy clubs, probably the people in charge are more lefty, more Democrat. Like it's probably a safer bet to make fun of the Kanyes, the Kyries, that sort of thing. But I think ultimately someone would self-censor, being like, oh, well, this is not the kind of joke that I should have, because it wouldn't make into a set that I could do on a Colbert or one of these late. So you think about the next logical step for a lot of mainstream stream comics. It's get passed at the clubs and then get a late night spot. Well, who are all the late night hosts? What are
Fallon.
their political?
What
are their
is that
political
even
leanings?
something that comics care about anymore? That
For
seems
me,
like it's
no.
years
Like,
gone.
for
That
me,
seems
no,
like
but
it,
I'm very
yeah.
much not on the mainstream path. Like,
But do
I
you
did
really feel
Gutfeld.
like the
Yeah.
mainstream? You think that's still like a destination, Kimmel and Colbert to do comedy?
For a lot
Yeah.
of people, it really is.
Wow.
It's just the old. It's like the person who's like, "Yeah, I have to go to med school, and then I become a doctor," and then in the back of their head, they're like, "Well, maybe I wanted to get into like, I don't know, maybe a chiropractor. Maybe I want to go a different way. Maybe I want to choose a different path." It's like bump, bump, bump. That's what the mainstream kind of path is, because it's a very scary thing to go. No, my takes are like, for me, I'm like, oh, my takes are more not what the mainstream wants. Like, not even that I'm all that crazy, really. I think it's more just like who I associate and work with. But I kind of learned early on, like, okay, I'm not headed for this late night path. But then I end up on Gutfeld, which blows all the other late night shows out of the water in terms of viewership. They've got like over 2 million viewers just about every night. So I did something that was technically bigger than late night for comics. But at the end of the day, like, these are not career making spots anymore. It still comes down to you, the fan base that you're cultivating. Uh, but there's still so many comics that are doing this classic path of like grinding in the city, getting past the clubs, trying to get management so you can try to get a late night spot, so you can try to get a Comedy Central or an HBO
Are there
special.
any late night spots that you've seen in the last year that you think have been really good? Or do you just not even follow comedy on the
I
late night?
occasionally will follow. I'll see like, oh yeah, I know this girl. She got on this
Mhm.
show, and like sometimes I'll watch it, sometimes I don't. I think I kind of stopped being curious, and like maybe this comes off like, oh, she's salty, like she, but I just like, I kind of just stopped noticing, and
Yeah.
I'm more like fascinated by and respect people who go kind of make their own path, like a Tim Dillon or Andrew Schultz even kind of went around the bottleneck and made his own thing and came out on top. You know, like we talk about like how great Ryan Long is too. Like he was on the Minds event, like someone who kind of goes around the typical path. I respect and appreciate those people a lot more. And I even sometimes learn lessons from comics who get real big off TikTok. I'll be like, "Oh wow, what are they doing that's working that,
Mhm.
maybe I can start bringing
You know
into
what
my
I
own
saw a
career."
clip of the other day? Because Jimmy Fallon is actually one of the late night hosts that I feel like does have maybe a glimmer of hope. And I saw this skit that he did like 10 years ago with Owen Benjamin. Have you?
Wow.
It is this like song that they sing together, and it's very politically incorrect and it's very funny. I recommend people
Oh, that's
see that.
awesome.
I
Owen
forget what
Benjamin
it's.
is so funny. He's another like very highly canceled person, but like brilliant and sharp and so funny.
Yeah. Yeah,
Did he? Did
Owen.
he?
I mean, he literally like went and lived in the woods. Like,
Yeah, well, he
you know,
was
he just
very
screams
into
from the woods.
Hollywood, so he was like very in and then very out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What was surprising for me was Jon Stewart. Because like he
Ugh,
came out.
how
He came out.
disappointing.
I know he came out from retirement and actually did well. Going on Corral's or what's his face? Not
Colbert?
Colbert. Thank you.
Yeah.
He went on
Oh
Colbert
yeah.
show. It was like lab leak theory,
Yeah, with the
and I
whole
was like,
pandemic thing, he did that
That
rant.
was
Everyone.
such a great moment. I was like,
that
"Wow,
was
I
a great
respect him.
moment.
Look at that. He's
That's
being
the thing
real."
about Jon Stewart. Even though recently he's done some, questionable stuff, like I firmly believe that he will continue to surprise people and not be able to be placed in a single mold. I think that he does care too much about comedy to completely go full ideology. I because he is still funny. He just is. He's picking some odd battles.
Well, I
Recently.
agree. I hope you're right, Bill. But I mean, if you look at it, his writer's room, and like they actually do film these, and they film the writer's room, and they'll come up with the jokes and stuff. And man, it is just like so unbelievably formulaic, and obviously bending toward one side. He used to be very good about staying in the center. Yeah, he would always poke. I think he'd poke fun more conservatives, obviously, but like he really didn't get like caught up in whatever was trending. And I think that's what's changed a little bit there. Yeah.
It's
But
what's
it
such a
hasn't. But I
shame
mean,
because someone like what you said with John, you can tell he's a genuinely funny, bright guy, makes good observations, and you wonder if these very talented folks, they are very managed, they have a lot of representation. You wonder if these forces are creatively stifling them, like, better not joke about this, better steer clear from these topics. And then there's so much carving away, you're left with something that's just smooth and ugh.
Yeah, you get kind of Last Week Tonight vibes out of Jon Stewart's new show. You know, it's like, who's writing it, who's funding it. It sort of almost seems like he's not even involved.
It's just
that
his name
much.
slapped on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, he actually is. Like, if you watch the writing room, like if you watch those podcasts that they do, he's actually very intimately involved. He's in the writing room creating the joke. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like, I think he's just, I think he sees this ideology that he's adopted as being the quote unquote right one. And, you know, I just think he sides more with that side. And he is still a proponent of free speech, which is good. You know, obviously we need that. And, but yeah.
Chrissie, have you ever met Conan?
Yes, I interned for him when I was in college, and it was a really cool intern class because Ellie Kemper was in there, and she met Michael Coleman, her now husband, like on that internship. Like she was a little bit older; she was like older than like college age at the time, but so tall, hair is so big. Learned his favorite foods, like you know, fetched him coffee many a time, fetched his dinner. Spent more time with the writers, but like, you know, kind of passed by, maybe shook his hand at one point.
I have a soft spot for him. I think that he's kind of in a similar camp to Jon Stewart, where he's a genuinely funny guy. You know, I have to imagine that he's under his breath making fun of a lot of the cultural stuff going on these days. You know, he's not going to be particularly outspoken about it, but I always
he never really was. Like, yeah, his whole thing, I think he's done a really good job of not even getting political. I can't even think of anything off the top of my head. Like, he's always been goofy. He does interact with like the internet crowd through PewDiePie and stuff like that. And he would do his gaming bits and stuff. So yeah, he was always good at, you know, staying away from the politics.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap it up with some Elon conspiracy theories.
Okay.
John, let's look what he's ranting about today.
All right,
Chrissie, do you have any? So obviously, you know, we're all happy that accounts are getting restored. Are you fully happy? Are you kind of happy? Are you where do you stand on all this?
I'm tentatively optimistic for sure. Twitter is better and more fun than it's been in years. It is exciting to see people get their accounts back, many of which like were friends and people I work with. But then you're left going, oh, well, why don't they reinstate Alex Jones? Why not Gavin McInnes? Why not Peter McCullough? Why not all these other doctors that just showed a little bit of dissent, just questioning the things we're not supposed to question? It's like, well, you know, that would just be truly awesome if they could just let everyone come back. And then you go, oh, well, he's not going to have Alex back because he might just be kryptonite for advertisers. And he's the person that the mainstream has decided to make an example of, even though I've heard other people kind of like echo similar sentiments. Like if you watch the interview with Glenn Beck and Whitney Webb, like you could say a lot of the things that they're talking about, like globalist agendas, World Economic Forum, etc. You could be like, oh yeah, these these sound like they are a lot of Alex Jones-ish talking points. So I feel like the things he was passionate about will kind of carry on through more like palpable sources, I guess, like people that are less intense.
It seems
Maybe same thing
arbitrary
with
still
Joe,
to
but
me. Like he
yeah.
made a post, if you scroll down a little bit, Sean, you might need to check in the replies, but he was basically asking if, people think that there should be some, blanket reinstatement.
Oh yeah, I
Go
just
into
had the amnesty. Yeah.
the
I think so.
amnesty.
If someone is truly
Well,
evil, like let people decide
There
and
you go.
think for themselves.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
was
just
yeah.
it's so funny. It's really like seems to be happening on a whim. So like this poll, rather than doing this poll 2 weeks ago, he's
Mm.
doing this poll after he explicitly came out and said, like, no way, Alex isn't coming back on.
Yeah.
It's like
It's very
it seems
strategic.
you
It's very
Yeah.
think
strategic.
I
I
feel
think
it's less so. I feel like he's
I
just saying
he
stuff
has
and then
I
I
agree
know
with
it seems
Bill.
that way, but I think he's a genius, and I think he
he
comes
is.
across, like, very funny and whimsical, but, like, I think he knew that the Trump think about it, the Trump poll was first, and
Mhm.
Trump just announced he's running again. He probably figured that the results were gonna mimic the actual public's feeling on him.
Right.
Turns out his hunch was right. He brought back Trump, and now that everyone was saying, "Bring back Trump," everyone was saying it, and now notice in the last since Trump has been back, everyone's been saying, "Bring back this person, bring back this per" everyone's been noisy about who they want him to bring back.
No.
So it's almost like he is setting it up. He is setting the table. He's, like, teasing it out. He's kind of letting people know I think he has a sense of what people want, and this is just to warm people up for when he could be genuinely curious, or I hope he wants to bring everyone back and he's just taking a temperature first.
Well, this is what he said before. I mean, before he bought it, he said, it should just be the term should be changed so that as long as it's legal, it can be on
Yeah.
the app. And what's funny about this poll, should Twitter offer general amnesty to suspend accounts provided that they have not broken the law or engaged in egregious spam? 72% say yes, 27% say no. It's funny how, because the Trump poll was 52 to 48% in favor of Trump. But this question actually would let Trump back on. So it's like this question it's weighted so differently, even though it would apply. It's odd. It's just like the psychology of the question impacts people differently.
I think Trump was easier for people to focus on because people could go, "Oh, okay, well, he did just announce he's running again," and that would qualify him as a public figure running for president. And now it's like, "Oh, well, this extends to all the dirty, naughty people." This covers a lot more ground than like
This
just
covers
Trump.
all the ground. So this may be the poll that kind of gets, you mentioned Peter McCullough, because like Peter McCullough, yeah, okay, he's a controversial scientist, but like he's in a completely different bucket from like Gavin and Alex. So it's like it seems odd that some people are still remaining banned, including Sean's account, Myth-Informed, which we need to get unbanned.
Really?
Yeah.
That's shocking.
Yeah, we're still banned.
So
yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just I think that the phrase did you say patiently optimistic, Chrissie?
Yeah, cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously.
And then there's a part of me that's like, this is the same Elon Musk that might be pushing a Neuralink brain chip into everybody in a couple years. So
this is why you have to maintain skepticism because Tesla, the AI behind Tesla, everything about it and SpaceX is hyper secretive. Like it's not as if the AI powering Tesla is some like ethical, open, transparent system that, is completely different from the AI that Facebook and Google are using. Like the Tesla AI it's secretive, it's surveillance based. And so again, that's not to say that there aren't potential benefits of it, but yeah, with Neuralink and the whole thing is shaping together like you know, because what is Twitter? And you see Elon making these comments like Twitter is alive. Like Elon is definitely thinking about Twitter, as he should be, as like this global conscious organism that is just streaming data into his AI hive being that is going to power, you know, these robots in your house and train these language models. So, you know, that those intentions do exist. And so it's a little bit of just shades of gray to me.
He is very much charming us. He is charming us with his like whimsical, funny personality right now, because we've never had that with Twitter. We've never had like a Twitter leader that we can actually engage with, that we feel like gives a shit about any of our opinions, who largely at the moment wants what the average fun Twitter user wants.
Well, how funny is that no other CEOs do this? Like, why don't other CEOs on other big apps like engage with the community? It's so smart. It's so
risky because they're too worried about saying the wrong thing, something not politically correct, offending somebody. Now it's like we're in this culture where you say one thing that someone can take as offensive. Well, then they can have you up against the wall, and it's just not worth the risk to show a little bit of weakness that can be taken advantage of.
Yeah, that's what's great about.
There's the Elon Twitter personality, and then I'm sure there's the Elon Tesla personality. Which, I mean, it's like these are all different sides of him. He definitely
true. We haven't
like
seen much of the dark side, and the dark side is there.
Yeah, I think he wants us to like him right now.
Well, that's what's great about Minds is Bill is always on it, interacting with everyone. So you know, we
gotta
need to
be.
see.
And I you know, I'm ultimately, you know, rooting for Elon, and I want him. I think he's broken some big barriers for like how Silicon Valley CEOs can even act. Like he's for not even Silicon Valley CEOs, just how elite billionaires can act. I mean, it's not always this like sterile kind of zombie, rich, powerful elite. Like they can connect with regular people and have a real personality. And just because you have, like, I know a couple billionaires.
Are they single? Just kidding.
Humble brag.
Well, actually one of the investors in Minds, Aaron Wolf, who's been on Timcast. I recommend people check out that episode. But you know, he's a billionaire, and I've been to his house. Super humble house. He drives a like 2000 Xterra maroon.
Nice.
It's like he at the point when you have that much money, life change, like how you think about energy and resources, and everything becomes like a video game. And I think that Elon's sort of in that space. That's why you see him living in like a little tiny house or like sleeping on the floor of the Tesla factory, because the material stuff kind of I mean, this isn't true for all of them, but I think for a certain number of them who have probably like done psychedelics,
you're like over the material aspect of it.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, what's next though?
But you know,
I mean, go ahead, son.
Yeah, I would say I'm with you on this though, Bill. Like, I like what Elon's doing. Obviously, he's bringing people back, but I'm still on in the position of what are the rules, and you know, that's what people have been asking for years since it's been out. Like, what are the actual rules? Why am I getting dinged? What can we can't? You know, what can we say? What can't we say? And I think that's what's kind of getting lost in all of this. It's like, great. You know, he's like a CEO, and I think about like employees, banned Twitter accounts are employees that were fired unfairly, and he's doing polls. Like imagine if your CEO is like in the boardroom doing polls. Hey, should we bring this person back? Should we bring that? That's why you have policies. You know, like you have policies. It's the, you know, this person was let go because of this and this, and you know, I just think we're missing that.
Yeah, well, that's the glitch that we've noticed, is that, you know, the policy that's public on Twitter's site right now is the same policy that they had before. Like no policy has changed. All the speech policies, the, you know, community guidelines are literally exactly the same. So he has almost made a mockery of them, because he has brought everybody back. Not everybody. He's brought a bunch of people back on, even amidst those terms being up. And so, yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that the terms need to change, and it will bring a lot more clarity to people. And yeah, but like ultimately I want to work with Twitter, become interoperable. I think we can do cool like bridges between the networks. I hope that Elon,
Oh yeah.
pursues kind of the decentralized stuff. And, I might have to stop by Twitter HQ in the next few months and see
Yeah,
if we
people have been sending him cookies and shit. Like, send him an edible arrangement.
Show up with Tate. Didn't Tate just get in his a plane or something and show up? Andrew Tate.
Oh, he just showed up.
Oh, yeah.
I
At least
saw a
he
story
made it look
like-
like he was gonna.
Yeah, he was like in a private jet. He's like going to shake Elon's hand at Twitter.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Chrissie, thank you so much for coming. Anything
it flew
coming up for
by.
you?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm going to be headlining in Vineland, New Jersey at Casey Ray's on December 3rd, and then I'm going to be in Rochester, New York, February 3rd and 4th, and then I'll be in San Diego February 24th and 25th, and you can get tickets on my website, chrissiemayr.com. I have a show called Timcast on Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern. I have a show on Compound Media Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern called Wet Spot. And then interviews on my YouTube channel. Also Rumble. Just trying to like be on all the platforms.
And minds.com/Chrissie Mayr.
And Minds, of course. Goes without saying.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. Rock on. We'll do it again.
Thanks for having me, guys.